Hey guys, welcome back to my Chubby Succulents channel. Today I've got this little guy to repot. I've got a few things that I'm going to do with him because, as you can see, he is really elongated. He's got a whole heap of babies and I have completely neglected him and I feel extremely bad. So today I'm going to sort him out and hopefully it'll give you guys some tips and tricks on how to do things a little bit easier. So what I'm going to start off with is the elongated stem. It was sort of pushed back into a bit of a corner, so it was stretching towards the light. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and chop that off. As you can see though, the base of the original plant, where it is really tight and compact, still has a lot of very healthy leaves. So what I'm going to do is chop that top bit off. See, so now I have a beautiful little rosette, and I'm going to tidy up the bottoms just so I have a bit of a stem to work with when I want to put it in the pot. There we go. So as you can see there, and I've got a nice little stem to work with, and all I have to do is pop that in the pot, but I'll show you that in a second. Now I'm just going to set that one aside. And as I was saying before, you can see it's got a whole heap of babies that have sort of popped out and tried to compensate for whatever was going on up here. So again, I am going to probably just chop them off because they are on quite a long stem. Take that little leaf as well and I can repot it. They're on quite a long stem, so they will be quite easy to repot, and I will have a whole heap of little babies. So I'll show you how I'll do that. Go through and I'll make sure there's a bit of length in that. Just because they're a bit smaller, I'd like to make sure I can put that a fair way in the soil. And again, I'm going to tidy up the stem, which is just wiggling the little leaves and just popping them off. And you can set those aside for propagation as well, the little leaves that you pop off. So I'm going to go around and do that to the rest of them. So now I have my little pups all tidied up and they've all got their little stems going on. I'm going to pop them aside and I'll continue with the rest of the plant, and then I'll show you what I'll do with these in a second. So what I'm going to do is grab a little plastic container or even a bowl or something, whatever works for you, to put all of the dead leaves in. This way it just doesn't make a mess everywhere. To remove the leaves, all you have to do is grab a hold of them, just give them a bit of a wiggle and they pull straight out. Okay, now I've taken all the dead leaves off. What I'm going to do next is wiggle a few of the healthy leaves that are just under here and pop them off, because as you can see under here we've got a whole heap of new pups and new growth that I would like to encourage to keep growing. So what I'm going to do is remove most of these and I'll save them for propagation. I will chop the little stem off just down to the top of the first couple of babies. are just left with the stem and the little pups that are all around the bottom. So the reason for taking off all of those leaves was so these guys can pretty much just get some room to breathe and grow themselves, because all of the leaves that were on the stem before were basically smothering it. I know this is going to look quite disgusting, but I'm going to just chop the stem off there. And then I'm going to give these little guys a chance to grow in this pot. I'm not really going to disturb it too much. I just don't want these little guys to die, because there is quite a few of them. That is potentially a whole heap of new plants that will grow just from this stem. Also, I'm hoping that because I have left the stem in there, a lot of babies do tend to grow out of the top as well. So hopefully, with a bit of luck, that is what will happen with that one. So now I'm going to set that aside. And I've got a lot of my little leaves here for propagation. As you can see, I only destroyed one of them. And by destroyed, I mean when I was pulling it off the stem, I ripped it's basically in half. Instead of keeping the flesh nice and sealed, you have like the little top of the leaf there. Looks like it has just been plucked nicely from the stem. It hasn't actually ripped off, whereas this one here is ripped off and it's quite fleshy. I'm going to tidy these up and put them in another container. So I'm going to put all my little leaves in another container. Going to pop those aside, and I will show you what I'll do with those after. So I have 6 little babies, and I'm going to show you how to repot those and help them grow roots and make them a brand new plant. First of all, I've got a couple of little pots. I'm going to say these are about just 2-inch pots. They're nothing special, they've just got drainage holes at the bottom, and I'm going to fill them up with soil. I'm going to fill them up using my cactus and succulent mix, the Osmocote, I'm not too sure how you say it, but I find this works really well because it's a well draining soil and it doesn't retain moisture for too long. So the way I fill these little pots up is I literally just open the bag up a little bit, I'll scoop it in and just compress the soil down a little bit. Pots filled up with soil. What I'm going to do is just make sure that the stem of the plant has a nice clean cut, because if there's any tears or anything, it will pretty much enhance your chances of getting rot within the stem. Okay, so all we have to do is grab one little pot. I use my finger and just stick a tiny little hole in the center of the pot, place the stem straight into that hole, and then hold onto your little plant and push the sides down. This is just compressing the soil all around the middle. That way your plant has a pretty good chance of staying in there. So if you're wondering how the plant will survive just by sticking it into the soil like that, whoops, a little rock, the plant hardens off where the cutting is, which we like to call a callus. And then eventually you'll get little roots that grow out of the ends of the stem. And succulents are so hardy, you don't really have to keep an eye on them, but it does help because you have to monitor for rot and things like that. If you do get rot in the stem, it will sort of look like a bit of brown within the stem itself. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the rest of the plants, just by sticking them all in and compressing the soil. So this one's a tiny little one, and I'm going to be quite careful with it. Again, you don't actually have to just do them one at a time. You could probably fit 2 or 3 in the one little pot. I just like to have separate plants, and that way I can keep an eye on them a bit better and make sure that they're all getting enough water. Because I don't give these ones time to callus over the cutting, I won't water until maybe 2 or 3 weeks. If you have given your plant time to callus, I would suggest to start watering every maybe 2 or 3 days, just allowing the soil to dry out completely before you start watering again. You don't want too much water because again it will enhance your chances of rot within the stem and the plant. If your plant does start to rot and you don't want to pull the plant out completely and look at the stem, you can sometimes see spotting within the leaves, or like your leaves go quite soft and jelly like, I guess. Alright, I'm going to pop those guys aside and I'll show you what to do with the leaves that we took off before. So what I've got here is just a little tray. It's very shallow and it has got holes in the side, only because I don't fill it up the whole way with soil. I will just sprinkle a little bit of soil over the surface just for the roots to be able to have something to grab onto. And then once I find that they are rooting okay, I'll pop them on top of little pots like this. I'll fill up the soil like I did with the others, and I'll sit the rooted leaf on top. That way it can have a chance to grow all the way down inside the pot. So again, I'm just going to use my cactus mix, and I'm going to use one of these little things with a scooper. And I will literally just sprinkle dirt the whole way along. Alright, now I've got all my dirt in the tray. What I'm going to do with my little leaves is grab them one by one, and I will lay them, as you can see, the leaf would have sat in the plant that way, not upside down that way. I'm going to lay it in the soil as if it was naturally sitting on a plant. And like I've said in one of my other videos, not all of these little leaves are going to survive and sprout little babies, but I like to give them the best chance that I can. Okay, now that that's all done, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest off camera. With these little leaves, the end up there is where the roots grow from, and eventually tiny babies grow out of that too. So this is a little donkey's tail plantlet that I have taken from my little propagating area. As you can see, it's got its little roots down here and a little plant growing out from the top of the leaf there. So that's what these ones will eventually do with these leaves. Quite similar little thing, so I just lay them down in the soil, the roots grow down into the soil, and the little plant just sits on top. And eventually the little leaf will just sort of disappear, it'll dry out, and it'll all be finished with. And so the same happens with this leaf here. Okay, so here we've got our leaves for propagating. The little stem that I have cut off, and it has all the babies around the top of it. I'm going to let that ride, see how it goes. Hopefully these little plantlets will grow into bigger plants. I've also got these ones here. I'm going to see if they will eventually root down into the soil and grow. So watering for these ones, I will wait maybe a week and then I'll begin to just use a spray bottle and just spray and mist every maybe couple of days, and allowing again for the soil to completely dry out before you start to water again. And with this one I will continue to water like normal, so I won't water the stem because obviously it has a fresh cut off it, and some of the little plants also around the outside now have fresh cuttings also on top of them, so I will only water the soil. That's again to prevent rot. Rot is one of the biggest things that get most of my plants, because in my area moisture hangs around for a lot longer than dry areas. Now these little guys I will only water every couple of weeks, but that will be after 1 week, once the stem has calloused over and it won't absorb way too much water and rot. And as for all of these, I will keep them in dappled shade because they're all fresh and they've been sort of played around with, so they might be a little bit stressed. So I will just keep them under a tree or in a little bit of shade throughout the day. So unfortunately that is the end of this little tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, like and subscribe down the bottom, because that will be a huge help. Also, don't forget to let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see, or if you have any questions about anything. It really helps me with decent content for you guys, and I really enjoy keeping you guys happy. So, woo! Thank you!